you need a proper platform. So this is the place. So if you have a platform, then obviously it will lead people into it. So that's what we started. That was the whole objective in starting this. So in another 3-4 years time, I think we'll reach that standard. So, and we have good debaters who have already won international competitions. So the potential is there.
I think we can talk for hours on this because it seems very interesting, and it is interesting as well. So what we're going to do is to give an intro to the debate itself. I'm very excited, and I'm sure that you are as well, and you got the cast here as well. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with the hot debate of a hot topic. Don't go anywhere. Good morning, Sri Lanka.
Crumbling infrastructure, desolate, barren cities, no sign of humanity. However, on the roads instead, marching to the same beat, ghoulish, wild-eyed, homogeneous, rows and rows of the same mob. Is this a scene from a recent Hollywood zombie film? No, this is the opening scene of a BBC documentary done on North Korea, and that hungry, salivating, ghoulish mob are its hungry civilians. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic for today's debate is that this House would ban the sale of surveillance technology to non-democratic states. The proposition would proposes this topic on the stand that this House would make a principal stand against non-democratic states. Why? Because we believe that there are some human rights that are only available and that are only duly respected and recognized in a framework which is only available in democracies. For an example, the freedom of movement, the freedom of privacy, the freedom of the right of privacy, the many civic liberties that we understand our life with, that are essential for a fulfilling life, as we understand, as democratic countries have come to understand it, are only available in a democracy, and there seems no sign that non-democratic states would ever come to a place where they would offer a meaningful life, a fulfilling life to their own civilians. We see endless victimization, we see endless repression. This we want to stop, and this is why we are making a principal stand against it. And why? Through the ban of surveillance. I gave you the example of North Korean, what North Korea would look like. Nobody's seen North Korea, what it looks like, but what North Korea would look like if you go there and witness it. Why has this happened? This has happened because governments are able to repress their own people, because most of these non-democratic countries have come to grow among and to adopt this idea of collective values and prioritizing collective values against individual values. We believe that championing collective values against individual liberties, individual values, is what holds these non-democratic states to and upholds them. We believe that for democracy, the most fundamental kind of knowledge that you require is the understanding that you are an individual with individual freedoms and rights and liberties. Therefore, we believe that the right to privacy is an essential and the most is the cornerstone of democracy. It's the prerequisite for any kind of democracy to grow up. So therefore we believe that the surveillance technology is something that has cropped out of in this world, in response to terrorism and so many other threats that democratic states and so many threats that organized nations have faced in this century. So the problem with surveillance is that it can easily be used, it has the potential of being used against enemy states as well as against your own civilians. For an example, if I may give you a glimpse of the kind of power that surveillance technology has, there are systems called Carnivore, Narusight and Echelon, and then which have the ability to intercept and analyze information, vast information, including private emails of citizens, and to access even personal information of these of individual citizens, violating their right of privacy, and then for an example, the United States of America has a repository of private emails of private individuals, which is called the pinwheel. So the arguments for which the arguments upon which the proposition is basing its case are these. One, the protection of civilians in non-democratic countries are at stake, and therefore we should ban the sale of surveillance technology to non-democratic states. Two, that denying international endorsement to non-democratic nations is an important thing in making a I take your point now, ma'am.
So, isn't surveillance an essential component in national security?
No, ma'am. Surveillance is not an essential component in national security. Even if it was, we will argue with our first argument that surveillance is something, it's a kind of privilege that democratic nations can afford. Why? Because in democratic nations there are certain safeguards and procedures and mechanisms that make sure that they undergo a certain screening process and that they're open to the review of the public and the review of the judiciary. For an example, the Watergate scandal of America, where the Richard Nixon administration, which was found guilty of spying on political opponents, was brought to justice. Why did this happen? Because in democratic countries there are safeguards against surveillance technology being used against the citizens, but in non-democratic nations this is not the case. You take the case of China, where the Golden Shield, there's something called the Golden Shield, or which is also known as the Great Firewall of China, in which is a technology which collects all the data of the civilians of the country, all the private information of the country, and there's a chance of them abusing because there are no democratic safeguards.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, a man's home is his castle and he has the right to protect this castle. Today's topic is this House would ban the sale of surveillance technology to non-democratic states. And as the opposition, we vehemently oppose this on the stand that every country deserves the right to protect themselves. We will be going on three main constructives. Firstly, sovereign equality. Secondly, the message of democracy has to be spread democratically. Thirdly, the incentive for non-democratic countries to observe protocol. Before I go on to our constructives, I will rebut some of the points brought out by side proposition. What are these? They mainly went on 2 points. They said surveillance will be used against citizens. They went on the idea, the assumption that this is always a bad thing. This is not a bad thing. Like I will be bringing out in my arguments, the new threat to worlds, to security, to national security is terrorism. And terrorism is not necessarily an export. It is homegrown, it is homogeneous, and the threat sometimes, most times, is increasingly coming from within. Secondly, they said that they are denying endorsement to non-democratic countries. This is no, ma'am. This is not about endorsement. This is about going forward, helping non-democratic countries to go forward and become democratic. It is a process, it is a negotiation, and we are going to help them through compromising. To go on to our constructives, what are our arguments? To set out a bit of context for you. Sovereign equality. Why is surveillance so important to national security? Because military strength is no longer the most decisive factor in national security. If we look at 9/11, we see that the greatest threat to the world now is terrorism. If we take the current issues, the current threats coming to the world today, if you look at the Harvard Unabomber, if you look at the Boston Marathon bombings, we see that what CNN is calling an open source jihad that is happening. So terrorism is not in the traditional sense like side proposition is trying to make you believe something that comes from outside. You need to survey your citizens because sometimes the citizens are the threat. Yes, ma'am.
Aren't you endorsing non-democratic countries?
Ma'am, I will be getting to that. To go on to say, now why do we need to survey in this, why do we need to survey citizens? To go on to our first argument, we're talking about sovereign equality. We had a lot of wars in the 17th century and nations came to a consensus. They said wars are enough, we have to respect boundaries. Now the new tool in respecting boundaries, in respecting national security is surveillance. Because like I told you before, military is now not the main tool, and to equalize all these countries, equalize their power, we are saying that surveillance should be given to all of them, but not like side proposition wants you to believe. We're not giving this without any terms and conditions, but with terms and conditions. Our model is we're going to regulate the sale, we're going to ban the black market, we're going to ban sale by non-democratic countries. I will tell you how in our second argument. Our second argument is that the message of democracy has to be spread democratically. Brute force is not the answer. We see how side proposition has brought up the example of North Korea. That does not work. What we need is compromise. What we need is negotiation. Why has North Korea stayed the way it has for so long? Because states are not willing to compromise. Now what we're doing is we're telling these states that democracy can be attained. We're giving that where there is a duty to respect popular mandate and consent, and that democracy is something where means define the ends, where we are sticking to the aesthetic sense of justice. Now there are incentives and benefits for countries to become democratic, to deal with democratic countries. What are these? The first one is bargaining power to negotiate substantial change in these countries. If we take, for example, the EU, they give out loans, they give out various financial help to countries on the basis of several terms and conditions. These terms and conditions are fulfilled, they get the money. If they don't, their funding is cut. We see this is an effective measure. This measure has worked before. Secondly, the observation process. Countries, when such terms and conditions are given, they are in the process. This is not an end-all kind of contract. We're telling them this will be subject to review. So there will be a periodic review of this contract. We're not giving them surveillance technology en masse. There will be a review, and that will be based on good behavior. Thirdly, the incentive for non-democratic countries to purchase from democratic countries. It will give them a sense of legitimacy for their actions. It will be, if it's obtained illegally, they will have to defend it. They will have to answer it, and there will be international disturbance. So therefore, through this legitimacy, through this gradual process of development into democracy, we see through this compromise, it's really a win-win situation. Therefore, we see side proposition does not stand and side opposition does. Thank you.
Well, we witnessed one of the greatest debates of all time, but it's a very twisting tradition. It's not the traditional debates that we see day to day. Any thoughts about it? It's very Australasian, I heard.
It's called the Australasian format of debating. It's kind of new to Sri Lanka, but now that is the level of debating that's being conducted. So basically, on a closing note, anyone interested in debating, anyone with a passion for debating is welcome to come and witness the competition 13th and 14th of July. And also on a closing note, we would like to thank the Debaters Council of Sri Lanka, as they will be conducting the adjudication process of the competition. And also finally, the principal of Law College and all the students of Law College for all their help, support. We'd like to thank them.
Alright, thank you so much, all three of you. It's been our privilege and pleasure having you all. Okay?
Thank you.
Of course, Good Morning Sri Lanka continues as well. Join our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Good Morning Sri Lanka. It is a Facebook page. Go and put a like on it and stand a chance of winning MTV merchandise. It's me, Banu, signing off for today. But just a little quote: it's always darkest before the dawn. So never give up and arise the leader in you. Have a great day.